In Liu Bei's army camp, the lamps shone late into the night. Liu Bei sat up before an array of messages, speaking of the treachery of Sun Ce and Gongsun Zan, King of Wu and King of Yan they claimed to be, and furthermore, Emperor of China both. Liu Bei's tears halted only when they were waylaid by outbursts of anger. Guan Yu stayed with him, but was hardly in a different state to his lord. As first light approached, Lord Guan fetched Zhuge Liang from his tent. The Prime Minister bowed and approached Liu Bei with all the requisite formalities. Liu Bei, with his red face sullen and his voice hoarse, begged Zhuge Liang not for advice, but for an explanation. "Ah, the empire, blessed with a single ruler, is then cursed with three. Such things we summon like rain from the mountains," Zhuge Liang said. "How did we summon this? We were on the verge of peace, but those two traitors would prefer war." "Yes, indeed. Yet falling downhill requires that one climb it." "You mean to say I shouldn't have even tried?" Liu Bei burst out. Zhuge Liang remained utterly composed. "I mean to say that demons gather around the great. Perhaps I can explain. Let me ask you this, Your Majesty. Why is it that our empire, once peaceful, became so consumed by war? Is it not the same land, with the same laws, roads, timbers and stars as before?" "It is the likes of Sun Ce that did this," Liu Bei growled. "It is corruption among those we give responsibilities of utmost importance. When evil men abound, how can the good stand a chance?" "You are onto something," Zhuge Liang nodded. "So, if our realm is afflicted by bad men, and wanting of good men, the next question must be, what makes a man good or bad? What else is there to measure but one's virtue? Good men possess character as wide as the sky and wisdom as deep as the sea. Even a single stain is enough to sully it all. Sun Ce is of great renown and is overflowing with energy, yet he is unlearned and greedy. Gongsun Zan is experienced with the classics and sees far into the future, but he suffers insults like grave wounds. These flawed men are destroying our empire." "But Your Majesty, if it is the flaws of men at fault, then how can the empire have lasted this long? When I think of those I pass when I walk through a market, how can I say that any of them meet your definition of a good man? Vices spread among them like an epidemic, and virtues are laughed at like self-important house cats. Yet they appear to do no damage to our grand administration at all. Then I misspoke. It is when these tainted men hold power that the empire shakes. I've nothing but pride in what the common people achieve, despite their low station. Never could they be blamed for the foul deeds of the corrupt kings who drive them to war." "But does this not invite further question?" Zhuge Liang said with a smile. "How does it come to pass that bad people are given such unearned trust?" "It is the lack of diligence among the officials of the court," Liu Bei confidently replied. "The eunuchs oversaw the downfall of this empire in precisely that fashion. With proper appointment of high administrators, the empire will stand until the last cloud falls from heaven. Then it all becomes a simple matter of judging a man's character. Your Majesty, we appear to be very close to perfecting the art of statesmanship." Zhuge Liang nodded, brow furrowed, yet mouth smirking. "However, the difficulty of this final step concerns me greatly. To maintain proper character in office without end, one requires alienation from the norms of humanity. One must be unmoved by money. One must cast no second glance at women. One must be sincere in their deference and fair in their authority. Only a man who cannot be moved to evil, and cannot move others there in his stead, can be considered a perfect official. This is all well and good, but who in the empire can live up to this? To demand rule by good men is to demand the throne be empty and justice wither. And what if a man were to be appointed without such a thorough assessment? A single corrupt official will allow the corruption of all beneath him, and beg for the corruption of those above. As the old saying goes, to elevate the king of beggars would make beggars of us all. Heaven cannot possibly endure such a mire of foul fortune. There is certainly a different way to proceed." "Prime Minister, you asked how the empire was at peace for 20 generations before me. You said my answer was correct, but now you say that good men do not exist. I cannot believe you mean to insult our ancestors so. What do you mean by all this? I apologize, Your Majesty. I have rambled too much. Ignore this scholarly talk. You are right. For now, we must simply rid ourselves of your enemies. I have already studied the disposition of forces across the realm. Allow me to recommend you a strategy. Zhao Yun and Zhang Fei were sent towards the Yellow River in the north, while Xiahou Dun guarded the Yangtze in the south. But even with these sentinels, the enormity of their foes spelled doom sooner or later. Fresh troops were raised in the central plains, and legendary warrior Liu Bei was recalled from his raids in the Hanzhong Mountains. However, almost as soon as he turned to march east, he found that an army under Lady Bian, Ma Teng's wife, had been shadowing him. Liu Bei was in favour of breaking through head-on, but fledgling Phoenix had recently arrived to be his advisor, and the strategist said, "Lord Liu Bei, everybody knows that you are a warrior who can match a whole army on his own. Given that, why don't you attack them from the front, while I surprise them by moving our army out of view tonight? We have scarcely half their numbers, but in this way it will seem like we have doubled in an instant." Liu Bei was delighted with the plan, and eagerly rode out to face the Ma troops on his own. They were arrayed on a wide hill with a thick wood to their rear, a strong position, but the trees covered Pang Tong's secret march nicely. To the front, all were transfixed on Liu Bei, challenging for battle alone. No warrior dared emerge, so he ventured closer, within 50 paces of the front ranks. He was so close that even in the dark of night, the foot soldiers could see his feathered plume helmet and red-maned steed, outshone only by the huge tasselled halberd hanging at his side. Unable to withstand this arrogance, General Pu Jiang ordered all cavalry to run Liu Bei off the hill, although he himself remained in the rear. Horsemen wielding spears and lances charged down with great speed, but Liu Bei was unmoved. Then his halberd span like a great wheel, and his voice barked like a mountain god. Spearheads shattered, horses tumbled to the ground, and riders were launched this way and that with unheard of momentum. No weapon touched Liu Bei, and no one that ventured within halberd's reach escaped. Seeing a whole company of riders flattened in moments by a single opponent, the Ma army trembled from top to bottom. Now, when Liu Bei trotted closer, they pushed and shoved their way backwards, becoming like water rippling away from a stone. In a chaotic struggle to not be the closest to Liu Bei, the army lost all sense of strategy. Therefore, Pang Tong arrived at the top of the wooded hill to their rear, completely undetected. When Liu Bei saw the distant flickering of a soaring fire arrow, he ceased his wrangling and dug into the fight at last. He furiously tore companies of infantry apart from the front. It seemed like everybody he faced would only rush to escape, presenting little challenge. That rendered him entirely surprised when a huge battle axe swung out of the enemy lines and knocked him soaring from his horse. It was Pu Jiang, this time surrounded by his best troops. Realizing he was about to be trapped, Liu Bei ran back down the hill, and none dared follow him. Still, the work he had set out to do was complete. Pang Tong emerged from the woods behind a wall of charging spearmen, who slammed into the disorganized Ma army beneath a wave of falling arrows. Thus, the Liu army, only some 4 ranks deep, flattened 20 ranks of Ma troops all at once. Here and there troops organized themselves and fought to all sides, all the more valiant for the impossibility of escape. It was a scene of panic and blood, in moments made clear to see by fires spread through the woods when flaming arrows and crashing lanterns were caught in branches. Pu Jiang fought on for nearly an hour with his huge great axe, killing countless Liu soldiers, but eventually he fled, joining Lady Bian and a few surviving troops in a hurried scramble towards the mountains. They needn't have hurried, for Liu Bei did not pursue. With passage secured, he pressed east towards Shangyong and the brewing battlegrounds of the Central Plains. There awaited even more fighting than his emperor had originally promised, for it seemed that the corrupt kings were making bandits of even austere heroes, just as Zhuge Liang had predicted. That is to say, Liu Biao and Zheng Jiang declared their support for Liu Shi and joined the rebellion. "That's impossible! I was doing this on their behalf!" Liu Bei raged. "Brother, you've been betrayed. In war it is no less common than victory and defeat. We must trust in the people to see who is right and assert our honor in battle," Guan Yu advised. Liu Bei looked to Zhuge Liang and got a nod in return. "So be it. Fools, this empire will be ruled by good men. If all those who disagree stick their necks out like this, then peace shall come all the sooner," Liu Bei said. With this, the territories loyal to Emperor Dongfeng were at war in all directions. That defeat was as natural a course as victory would be tested without delay. Zheng Jiang's troops began seizing territories near Luoyang, and the queen herself mobilized her army in Jing. Liu Bei needed to bring the main army back from the northwestern plains, and the chance to do so was delivered shortly. Ma Teng, recently defeated by Zhuge Liang's ambush, was turned over to Liu Bei by some crafty peasants in Hanzhong. For the second time, Ma Teng demanded swift execution, and for the second time, Liu Bei denied him. "Lord Ma, your oath to Emperor Shan is fulfilled. If you would only visit Donghai with me, I could prove it," Liu Bei said. Ma Teng bowed and agreed. Emperor Shan gave Emperor Dongfeng the highest praise, as he did for Ma Teng, whose loyalty had been proven. Therefore, Liu Bei accepted a recommendation from the former emperor that Ma Teng be restored to his post in Xiliang. In this way, the war in the northwest became a contest between Ma Teng and his stubborn comrade Han Sui. Han Sui would hear nothing of Liu Shi's true wishes, and hence all below him were to have war on account of that single vice. Zhuge Liang explained this smugly to Liu Bei, who nodded along with great concern. Far away from this contemplation in Chang'an, Liu Bei's loyal friend Zhao Yun set out to punish the traitor Liu Biao. His army arrived in Jiang Xiao Commandery, where the powerful Cai clan owned most of the land outside the city. The belligerent Cai were subordinates of Liu Biao, and were more than ready for war when Zhao Yun arrived. They had fortified a series of farms, creating a well-supplied, expansive camp. "It's perfect for a fire attack," Zhao Yun remarked, looking to his strategist Cheng Shu for confirmation. "Yes, but what would that achieve?" Cheng Shu said. "A fire would destroy more houses than enemy formations, and the hills and cliffs are their main advantage. If we burn the whole village, what will the point of punishing Liu Biao even be? This would punish him and more. It would punish those who follow the traitor and end their tribute to him. And what harm would smoking out the enemy troops do us? Shall we begin?" Cheng Shu still shook his head. "The Emperor would never allow it." "You dare speak for the Emperor?" "Dare you?" "The Emperor's well-being is my only aim. If you will see the Empire ail for the benefit of these piles of thatch, how can I listen to you?" Zhao Yun said. Ultimately, Cheng Shu had to concede to Zhao Yun's demands, although he was able to feign a lack of materials for firebombs. Instead, incendiaries were loaded into heavy bows and given to the best troops. They approached the fortified village at night and burned the outer wall without resistance. When troops assembled to fight them, more incendiaries were launched forwards, burning men and equipment alike. Lady Cai, the de facto commander of the garrison, had no notion of what to do. In the darkness, she was not even sure where Zhao Yun's forces were located, and so dared not sally away from her defences. This indecision played into Zhao Yun's strategy precisely, and over the course of the night, thousands were killed in hit-and-run fire attacks, including several companies of soldiers. The Liu archers had coated their arrows in oil, which splashed down onto whatever or whomever they impacted, rendering the fire furious and impossible to extinguish. The villagers, and even the Cai officers, had never seen anything so ferocious. Zhao Yun watched the chaos with glee, remarking to all around that the majesty of the Empire was clear to see in those white-hot flames. Before dawn, he ordered a general assault upon the camp. He led about 2,000 men over the ashes of the southern gateway, but was met with 1,000 able spearmen at least. The fire attack had not broken the spirits of the Cai, nor the local militias under their banner. Thus the final push into the camp was hard fought. The Cai troops fought to the last man, screaming curses for Zhao Yun and Emperor Dongfeng well into the morning. Only Zhao Yun himself seemed unaffected as he jabbed his spear into opponent after opponent. All of the soldiers and half of the villagers were dead when the final assessment was made. Zhao Yun had performed his task with admirable skill by his own judgment. Jiang Xiao's farms were all seized from the Sai in the coming month and given to loyal servants of the Han. By this time, Zhang Fei had arrived in Langye to the north, with authority from Liu Bei to do whatever it took to resist invasions by Yuan Shao and Gongsun Zan. In the forests east of the city, the locals told him, there was an army camp where Yuan Shao was sending troops to muster for his grand invasion. Wasting no time, Zhang Fei took Xu Shu and Huang Gai from the military headquarters in the city and raced to attack the Yuan camp. "General, those fools have encamped in the middle of the forest, far from streams and surrounded by trees," Xu Shu explained. "They clearly have no idea we plan to attack. Given the layout of their camp, a fire attack would wipe them out without a fight." "A fire attack?" Zhang Fei scoffed. "What will that achieve? If we kill them with fire, how will it instill fear on the rest of them out there? We want those northerners to fear our blades, not the elements." After a stalemated debate between the two, Huang Gai interjected. "General Zhang, could it not be said that to control the elements is more skillful than to be practiced with a blade? Since time immemorial great generals have used fire. Why don't you let Master Shu here try his idea? If it fails, we'll rely on your valor to save us." These were just the right words, and Zhang Fei agreed. The Yuan camp was as vulnerable as Xu Shu had said. Fires were secretly lit in the southeast and southwest corners, and within an hour the entire palisade was ablaze. Bolts and arrows were shot over the crumbling walls, killing soldiers within and spreading panic. The camp commander Zhang Hong rallied his army in the northern quarters and worked tirelessly to douse the flames. It worked, and much of the army's baggage was saved as a result. However, since they hadn't retreated, Zhang Fei was allowed his chance to one-up Xu Shu. Through the smoke he charged, leading bands of shielded warriors in a roughly coordinated raid. Zhang Hong's men lined up to fight, but the wreathing smoke and shaking ground was impossible to ignore. Zhang Hong's strategist found a horse and fled into the adjoining woods, as did half the soldiery. Little did they know, Huang Gai was already stationed there with squadrons of cavalry, so escape was impossible. Zhang Fei killed the camp's second-in-command with a spear through the chest, then duelled Zhang Hong for 10 bouts before slashing him across the neck. With these two heads in his possession, terrifying the remaining elite troops was easy, and the camp was taken. Every Yuan soldier was killed or taken prisoner, and hence Yuan Shao's planned invasion of Shu province was greatly stalled. Therefore, Emperor Dongfeng had enjoyed 3 great victories at the commencement of the final war. In Hanzhong, Zhengsha and Langye, the folly of resisting the new order had been shown. But the rumble of horses echoed from the northern plains, and the thuds of marching emerged from the southern mountains. The kingdoms of Yan and Wu were assembling all that their majesty could command. Now that they had the likes of Liu Biao and Zheng Jiang pinning Liu Bei from within, how could they be stopped? Read on.